What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We've got a bye-nado here in Week 12. Atlanta, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, New Orleans, and the Jets are all on bye. We are going to help you out. Adam Azer here with Jamie Eisenberg, just Jamie Eisenberg. Jamie, it's a wonderful Tuesday morning. It's a good day to sing, so today is just the two of us. Are you excited?
Yeah, very, very excited. I've never been happier.
Jamie leaves the stream. You know what? Jamie dropped a series of great dad jokes on a text yesterday. If you'd like to read one, I think they're terrific.
You can read it. Go ahead.
All right, I'll pull it up. How are you thinking about the waiver wire this week?
It's interesting. It's we're back to no running backs again, which is good. And the receivers are somewhat helpful. I don't think there's a must-start receiver that you're picking up. There's guys that have potential to be must-start receivers. There are two great tight ends based on what we've seen recently, and there's a couple of good quarterbacks.
Yeah, I kind of wish that the top players at each position, or specifically quarterback and tight end, were a little bit more reliable. But, beggars can't be choosers, right? I mean, it's like Will Dissly is your top tight end, right?
I mean, look at what he's done.
Yeah, he's getting really good.
Yeah.
But he is Will Dissly, right? I mean, it's not like a lock.
No, I mean, there's no must break the bank for guy.
Yeah, and Richardson, I'd feel better about if Detroit's been really good, but he can be matchup proof if he runs, for 2 touchdowns. Anyway,
he's not a top 12 quarterback for me this week, but he is somebody I want to add.
Right. Who are your top 3 priorities?
The top 3 priorities would be the 2 tight ends, which would be Will Dissly and Jonnu Smith, and Christian Watson.
Oh, okay. So not Richardson.
No, I just think, again, you're looking at it. This is when you look at the teams that are on bye this week, right? And you look at the positions. So I just want to make sure I have all the teams right. You got Atlanta, you got Cincinnati, you got Buffalo,
Jets, Saints, and Jacksonville.
Jets and Jacksonville are the 6 teams, right? Did I miss one?
Nope. Atlanta, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Jacksonville, New Orleans, and the Jets.
I don't think I said New Orleans. So you got those 6 teams on bye. Look at the tight ends that are missing.
Yeah.
Like there's several that, whether you have considered them must starts or maybe starts, but must roster guys, so you're down Kyle Pitts, you're down
Taysom Hill,
Buffalo guys, whoever that may be, Mike Gesicki, Evan Ingram, now Taysom Hill, yeah. And Tyler Conklin for what it's worth. Like that's hard to replace. Quarterback, I think you can manage. Whether it's the top 2 for me are I think startable in Richardson and May. Receiver, you should be able to find starting options. Again, it's not going to be easy for everybody, but you should be. Running back, again, it's not a lot of injuries, so thankfully you should be all right there, even though you're missing a lot of standout players. But if you can find one of these tight ends, they may not be just starters to replace you. They may be starters for the rest of the season.
Yeah, all right. So you say Will Dissly, Jonnu Smith, and Christian Watson are the top priorities. Watson has San Francisco. San Francisco is going to get a little bit healthier in the secondary with Charvarius Ward coming back, dealing with a personal injury issue, and now he'll be back. Hopefully, should be back this week, and that's good to see. And Watson, another guy, just kind of feels like a coin flip. I don't even know. Do matchups matter with Christian Watson? He only had 4 targets, and he had, I don't know if he scored the most fantasy points, but he certainly had the most yards of anyone against the Bears in Week 11. But only 4 targets.
But that's on a game where Jordan Love threw 17 times. So that's impressive. He had at least 6 targets each of his 2 previous games, so that they're trying to get him going a little bit. And look, let's just take a step back on the season here for the Packers. I was wrong, maybe, but for now I was wrong, that I thought Christian Watson had the most upside of all the Packers receivers prior to the season. Jaden Reed has played better than him this year. Injuries, again, have been a problem for him. But really, it's been so inconsistent for all of these guys. You had the 2-game stretch of Romeo Doubs being the best receiver for Green Bay. You had beginning of the season when Watson was a little banged up. Dontavian Wicks had some good moments. So it goes back to what LaFleur said about we don't really have a number 1 guy. And maybe that's just the truth, that, there's going to be different times where different guys step up. It feels like they're trying to get Christian Watson going. And if that happens, we know how hot he can get. So whoever you think is the best, I still have Jaden Reed ranked higher than Christian Watson for now, but would not be surprising if we're talking about Christian Watson as the best Packers receiver from this point forward.
I think one of the big questions, and some of these guys might be on the waiver wire, depending on your league. Maybe none of them are on the waiver wire if you're in a deep enough league. Is how do we feel about the Cleveland Browns? We talked about this on Beyond the Box Score yesterday. In their next 3 weeks, because the Cleveland Browns have been a gift to fantasy managers since Jameis Winston took over. They throw the ball a ton. They have the highest pass rate in the NFL. I mean, he's throwing 40 times regularly. Sometimes 50. And
he hasn't got 50 yet, but yeah.
He hasn't gotten 50 yet? Okay. But
it's 41 and 46 twice.
Oh, wow. Okay. So anyway, it's been great for the 3 receivers, not every week, and for Njoku, but it's been great. Pittsburgh and Denver coming up in their next 3 matchups, Pittsburgh twice and Denver once. If Elijah Moore's out there, if Jerry Jeudy's out there, he's about 70% roster. Jameis Winston himself is very available. How do you feel about the Browns offense over the next 3 weeks?
Go back to the Chargers game, and that's how you should feel. James did not play well. Tillman had a big game. Jeudy had a solid game, over 14 PPR points. Elijah Moore was a disappointment. We know how these offenses work. There's not going to be 3 receivers and a tight end all producing at the same time. 1 guy, 2 guys are going to get left out. So it's the gamble. This week it was Tillman got left out. That Chargers game, it was Moore got left out. The Ravens game, they all had a hand in doing something. So I think when there's a favorable matchup, you say, I'm all in. When there's a tough matchup, you say, okay, maybe who's on my roster that I trust more than the Browns receiver? In a week with 6 teams on a bye, I'm pretty sure I don't have my rankings in front of me. I'm pretty sure I have all 3 of them in the top 36.
Okay.
And that might be the norm moving forward. So I still like Tillman the best. Judy's a close second, and Moore is a close third. You're talking about on average, at least, I don't have the numbers in front of me, 8 targets per game for all of them since Jameis has taken over. So yeah. That's hard to overlook. So Jameis may have a crappy game because these matchups are bad, but in PPR, you still may get 12 to 14 from all 3 of them, and then Njoku as well. Like that's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah, and so sorry to belabor this point on the Browns, but you guys, I'm sure it's a big decision for a lot of fantasy managers out there. 8 or more targets, Jamie said, right? That's consistently what these 3 receivers are getting. So I looked at all the wide receivers who had 8 or more targets against Pittsburgh so far. There have been 7 wide receivers with 8 or more targets. The better wide receivers have actually done worse. It's weird. Garrett Wilson, CeeDee Lamb, and Devontae Adams, 8 or more targets against the Steelers. They all scored fewer than 12 PPR fantasy points. Malik Neighbors was okay. He had 7 for 71 on 13 targets. He scored 14.1 PPR fantasy points. The 3 guys who did well with 8 or more targets against Pittsburgh were Josh Downs, Jalen Tolbert, and Michael Pittman. Seems more like a coincidence to me. It's not like they have Joey Porter shadowing these great receivers or something like that. But for what it's worth, you've got 7 wide receivers who have 8 or more targets. 3 of them were pretty bad. 1 was okay. And 1 was solid, but he had 13 targets. And 3 had very good games. So call it a toss-up. But getting 8 or more targets against any team is a good thing. All right. So
I think if we did not have all the teams on a bye this week, Tillman and Jeudy are probably somewhere between 30 and 36. And Moore is just outside that.
All right. So again, Jamie's top priorities: Will Dissly, Jonnu Smith, and Christian Watson. And we will get into the quarterbacks because if you need, no Josh Allen, no Joe Burrow this week, no Kirk Cousins, we definitely need some quarterbacks, and there are some to choose from here. Let's talk about FAAB. I don't know. We should still talk about FAAB, I guess. Who would you put the most money on?
I think it comes down to what you need in your record. So if you need a receiver this week, Watson and Moore would be the 2 I would spend around 15% tops. For the tight ends, again, something similar in that range. The quarterbacks, if you're stuck, you need one, you're going to spend a little bit more, but no more than 10 is the way I have it written. And the running backs are like 5% each.
You say 15%, 5%. This is original budget?
Remaining
budget. Okay. And obviously, I mean, it's at this point, it's really hard to tell you how much FAAB to spend. It depends on your record. It depends on how much you have left. You want to do a fun exercise before we go to break? You ready to pump some iron?
Jumping jacks?
Yeah, here we go. Fun exercise. Can you name in a PPR league, 6-point per passing touchdown league, can you name the number 1 player per game at each position?
Number 1 player per game at each position.
I wouldn't have gotten all these right. I don't think so. Don't feel shame.
Quarterback Lamar?
Yes.
Okay. Running back Saquon?
Nope. Try again. Very recent.
Minimum amount of games?
7, 8.
7 games. Oh, Bijan?
Now Mixon.
Oh, Mixon. Okay.
He's your number one. I wouldn't have gotten that one.
Receiver. Chase?
Yep.
Tight end. Bowers?
Nope.
McBride? No, not McBride.
Hoping to play this week.
Oh,
Should
Kittle.
play this week. Kittle. Yeah. Okay. Want to try kicker?
Kicker. Boswell?
I think it's Austin Seibert.
Oh, yeah.
And Boswell's second. And let's see who the DST is. Just in our FFT league, it's the Vikings.
Yeah.
Is it the Vikings per game? It is. All right. CBS Sports Network. We are on CBS Sports Network today at 1 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're on CBS Sports Network. Today is Waiver Wire. Tomorrow, Robert Turbin and Heath Cummings join Jamie. Friday is more of a starter sit episode, plus some player props with Dave, Jamie, myself, and Katie Mox. So we'll see you at 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. When we come back, I'll tell you who has a good schedule coming up, who has a bad schedule, at least on paper, coming up. And then we'll tell you some more players to add and who to drop. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
Historic rivals with unforgettable seasons meet in a game of honor. The Army-Navy game presented by USAA, December 14th on CBS.
Hey, Schaefer, I have a question for you. I don't know if you want to pop on, but how much does a chimney cost?
This is a dad joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nothing. It's on the house.
That's good. That's good.
It was, yeah. Jamie always has good dad jokes. All right, schedule alert. Who's got good schedule coming up? Well, none other than Tommy DeVito. Tommy DeVito has
So good. It's
schedule.
so good.
Yeah. And I said on the show yesterday, he had 5 starts. I think he scored like 18 or more points in 3 of
17,
them.
17 and a half in 3 of the 5.
And he didn't score single-digit fantasy points in any of them. And he was on pace for about 550 rushing yards. I'm going to say he's not going to do as well as he did last year, but I am pretty interested in our Superflex League. I don't know if I think he's available.
I'm sure.
I will, right, because I feel like people may have picked up Drew Lock. I might be putting in a bid on Tommy DeVito.
Oh, you have to in Superflex and 2 quarterback leagues that are competitive. 10-team leagues, he may still be available post waivers, but look, you have a chance to get a quarterback when we have 6 teams on a bye and, another bye week, situation coming up in 2 weeks. Like, why would you not want to pick him up and see what happens? Who knows, if he stinks, do they go to Drew Lock? Or if he does too well, do they go to Drew Lock, for the other effect? But at this point, you got to feel like he's going to start rest of season. And so why not put him on your team just to see what happens?
All right, Tommy DeVito has a good schedule. Romo Dunze has a good schedule. Minnesota and Detroit are really interesting matchups. They are good defenses, but they give up a lot of points to receivers. But 4 of Romo Dunze and Keenan Allen's next 5 games are against Minnesota and Detroit. Obviously, DJ Moore also, but I'm only talking about players who are available on the waiver wire. Alec Pierce has Detroit and New England coming up. Dallas Goedert's got a good schedule. Actually, a lot of the tight ends have good schedules coming up. Dallas Goedert, Hunter Henry, Will Dissly, Jatavian Sanders has a great schedule. Theo Johnson has a very good schedule coming up. Who has bad schedules? 3 quarterbacks that I really highlight with having bad schedules this week and then some subsequent weeks. Geno Smith, not too worried about the Jets game in 2 weeks, revenge game, but 2 games against Arizona in his next 3 for Geno Smith. Matthew Stafford gets the Eagles this week. He gets New Orleans next week, which is fine, but then Buffalo at San Francisco, not great for Stafford. Jameis Winston, obviously, basically Cleveland, Pittsburgh at Denver, Pittsburgh, Kansas City in their next 4 games. A couple of the top running backs on waivers this week, the options are Roshan Johnson for the Bears and Amir Abdullah for the Raiders. They've got tough schedules coming up. Roshan with Minnesota, Detroit, San Francisco, Minnesota, Detroit. That's no good. And Amir Abdullah with Denver and Kansas City in his next 2 games, although Denver does struggle against pass-catching running backs. We'll give you the news and notes in a moment. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, now's the time. Use the bonus code FANTASY, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. So here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. Time for some news and notes. All right, so Tommy DeVito is going to start. Do you think that this is good, bad, or neutral for Malik Neighbors?
I think neutral, just given the schedule, given how much he will probably throw. You said how he did last season in terms of his fantasy production, so he clearly did not struggle. And if I'm not mistaken, Darius Slayton had some good games with him in that stretch. I'll go back and look. So he was basically the number one receiver there at the time. So I think you're just looking at it as probably neutral. Really, it's hard to be worse than what Daniel Jones has offered Malik Neighbors the majority of the season, but certainly of late since Andrew Thomas's injury. I'm hopeful that if he's protected, Neighbors will get targets and opportunities, and they'll play well. You just got to be concerned that do they shut down Neighbors at some point, which I hope they don't.
I'll just take a look real quick. Tommy DeVito from the Las Vegas to the New Orleans game.
Week 10 to week 16 with a bye in between.
So how about Darius Slayton from week 10, week 9 to week 15? Week 9, yeah. So he was on pace for 54 catches, 722 yards, and 3 touchdowns on 82 targets. That was Darius Slayton. All right, more news. Bryce Young will start for Carolina this week against Kansas City. We got 2 running back injuries for the Raiders. Do we have any updates on Madison and Zamir White?
No, I listened to Antonio Pierce's press conference yesterday. It was about 11 minutes long, and I couldn't make out the question, but he said his answer was, we're still waiting for an evaluation. We'll have an update for you later in the week. I assume it was about those 2 guys. So he was talking about how he thought the run game was starting to look better in the game in terms of the blocking, but clearly that didn't play itself out in terms of what the numbers look like. I think if you're just looking at this point, like, do you want to trust Amir Abdullah? If so, or Dylan Lobby, one of those guys are going to get a potentially big role.
Yeah. So
that might be the number 1 running back. I don't have it that way, but that could be the case.
Nick Chubb's snaps were limited partially because they're playing Thursday against Pittsburgh, so that factors in. Sean Payton said he's going to figure out the Denver running back situation each week. Great. Let us know beforehand, though. Tajay Spears is in the concussion protocol. Isaiah Pacheco could play this week against the Panthers. Jonathan Brooks is expected to play this week in that game against the Chiefs. Wide receiver news, Gabe Davis is out for the season. I haven't seen an update on Brian Thomas Jr. I assume he's going to be okay. Darnell Mooney seems like he has a minor hamstring injury. Mike Evans practiced. They're at the Giants this week. Fingers crossed for Evans. And Adam Thielen.
We are ranking him.
Okay, great. So Adam Thielen could play this week as well against the Chiefs.
We're ranking him also.
George Kittle expected to practice on Wednesday. You ranking Kittle?
We have not, but we will.
And Minnesota tight end Josh Oliver has the ankle injury. I mentioned this yesterday, but he once again played more snaps than TJ Hawkinson. On the offensive line, Dallas, 3 offensive linemen got hurt for the Cowboys last night. I don't know the severity, but they get Washington this week. Washington DST could be very popular this week.
Yep.
Rams right tackle Rob Havenstein is looking good for this week. Cleveland left tackle DeJuan Jones is out for this season. New Orleans center Eric McCoy should be okay after the bye. On defense, the big injuries we're looking at are Nick Bosa for the 49ers. Let's call him questionable. Tennessee linebacker, a couple of good run defenses that lost linebackers. Tennessee's linebacker Jack Gibbons is out for the season. They're at Houston this week. And Roquan Smith for the Ravens. He's just amazing. He has a hamstring injury. They're at the Chargers this week. Could we go back-to-back Chargers game of the week? Could be. Don't tell Dave. All right.
Remember the last time we did and everybody tweeted Dave?
Did I say that? I did.
Well, we were discussing like our plan to fool him.
And they spoiled it.
Yeah.
I can't trust you people. Also, Tampa Bay cornerback Jamel Dean could play this week at the Giants. They need all the help they can get in their secondary. And Cincinnati cornerback DJ Turner could have a serious injury, and they've struggled against the pass. Okay. Oh, another good run defense with an injury to a linebacker is Alex Anzalone for the Lions. He's out for a while.
Yep.
All right, Jamie, top 3 at each position. Quarterbacks, who do we like?
The quarterbacks are Anthony Richardson 1, Drake May 2. I don't know if you want to say there's a consistent 3 or a definite 3. I have Jameis 3rd just based on 2 of 3 games. He's been good, but the matchups, as you suggested, are just absolutely brutal coming up. So I don't know if you want to, factor him in as being a safe 3rd. If you're looking ahead, let's give Derek Carr some credit. Going into their bye week, over 22 fantasy points in each of his last 2 games. not the worst schedule coming out of the bye week. He gets the Giants, he gets the Rams in week 13, Giants in week 14, Washington week 15. So maybe he keeps it up. We thought with the receivers being decimated, receiving core being decimated, he would be lost. That hasn't been the case.
Okay, so you said Richardson, Drake May, and Jameis Winston. There's also Derek Carr. And there's a lot of the tough part about this is, hey, your league might have a Geno Smith or a Matthew Stafford or a Russell Wilson available. Who's your highest ranked quarterback when you look at Stafford's, Geno, and Wilson, and then Anthony Richardson for this week?
Russ, I think going back to him against Cleveland makes some sense. Just won't have the same, I think, intensity from the game standpoint. And it's funny. Like I had him as a start. I thought Dave's point was valid. Just given the nature of the rivalry there. And if you take away the moon balls for him, he just hasn't been good.
Yeah, but he's good with moon balls.
He is.
Yeah. Cleveland's got 2 defensive back injuries, Newsome and Ward.
That's part of it, yeah.
So we'll take a look at that. I don't think they're serious. We'll take a look at that. But they've just been bad. I mean, 5 of the last 6 quarterbacks to face the Browns have scored 21 or more fantasy points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. 5 straight quarterbacks have had a passer rating of 101.8 or better.
Is that factor in Taysom too?
No. No, but it factors in Derek Carr. Yeah. A lot of good they've faced a lot of good quarterbacks lately. All right. Who are the top running backs to get?
All right, cover your ears. This isn't a pretty list. So again, if you need somebody for this week, you're probably looking at the Raiders situation because of the injuries to Alexander Mattison and Zamir White. But I have Roschon Johnson first, then Trey Benson second, and then Amir Abdullah third. Really, I think when you look at it, Johnson, Benson, Cam Akers, Gus Edwards, they're all kind of the same. You need an injury for them to, I think, be really successful, but you can potentially use them as flex options. They've been getting work lately. Don't forget about Benson coming off of his bye week and what he was doing prior to that, where he scored at least 10 PPR points in 2 straight games. So they're all kind of like high-end handcuff / potential flex options. Johnson played a season-high snap count last week in the first game under Thomas Brown, and DeAndre Swift played his lowest snap count since week 3. So are we looking at maybe more of a shared situation here where he had 10 carries, Johnson did, and scored a touchdown? So I don't know what it's going to look like moving forward, but at least there was a change in the coaching staff, and Johnson's role may have changed a little bit. So it's Johnson, Benson, and Abdullah for me.
By the way, if you missed it on Beyond the Box Score, we were asked what changed in the Bears offense. They went from one of the lowest pre-snap motion rates in the NFL under Shane Waldron to, I think, the 6th highest going into Monday night. 6th highest in the NFL in week 11.
That's good.
And this is just one of those weird stats where you look at the teams that are high in pre-snap motion and almost all of them are good offenses. And you just wonder, why doesn't everybody do this all the time? So Roschon Johnson, coming off a 10 carry game and getting the goal line touchdown. Trey Benson has had 8 and 10 carries in his last 2 games. In both of those games, half of his carries, either 4 or 5, came with Arizona up by at least 18 points. Can't do math. So there was some game script there where they just took Connor out. But he's running well. I mean, 8 for 37 and a touchdown against the Bears, 10 for 62 against the Jets.
Right, but if something happens to Connor, we're talking about potential league winner here.
Oh yeah. I'm just looking at who's going to be good for week 12. Yep. I think I would probably gamble on Amir Abdullah if I really needed a running back.
Oh, I would agree. If you need a running back this week, then he's the one to go get. But we also have the uncertainty, like you said. We don't know if one of the 2 other guys comes back, and if that's the case, can you trust him?
Yeah. Cam Akers, as Jamie mentioned, Cam Akers had what do you have? 10 carries? Yeah, I think 10.
Yeah, he has at least 12 total touches in each of the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. They're at Chicago. And Jerome Ford, who could be used in passing downs, and Pittsburgh allows the 8th most receiving yards per game to running backs. I think I'm in the wrong section here. This is supposed to be the quick hitting who to add. Sorry about that. All right, wide receivers. Who are the top wide receivers to get?
So Christian Watson would be 1. Number 2 is Elijah Moore. And number 3 for me is Demario Douglas, which I know feels like we're just, broken record with him, and he just hasn't been producing. But really, there's not a standout number 3 guy for me. So you can take a chance on Jalen McMillan, who I have at 4, with the hope that he takes that Godwin role now that Mike Evans is back, and we get sort of a pecking order established, even though you got to factor in Cade Otton. You can look at Adam Thielen or Xavier Legette. Both guys fall in the range here. If you're looking at some of these boom bust wide receivers, you got MVS on a bye, but clearly he's been awesome in the 2 games, without Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. Westbrook Akine has now scored another touchdown, so a touchdown in 5 of his last 6 games. Big play threat. Alec Pierce, not the best situation for him, like we talked about last week, where Pittman was banged up, but another 70-plus yard game here. So there's lots of different options at receiver.
I'm not going to hate your Demarius Douglas call at all. I mean, I think a lot of people would be in a situation where they'll take 9 fantasy points in PPR, right? From a number 3 wide receiver that they picked up off waivers. And Douglas has done that pretty regularly with Drake May.
So three straight games of 9 to 10.5 PPR points. Only 1 touchdown on the season. I'm just setting the narrative of the negative here, which is what we'll hear a lot about with him. The positive is, you've seen 7 targets on average in 3 games in a row, and hopefully we start to see some more production, especially if they get into some shootouts.
Okay. Let's go to tight ends. Who are the top 3 tight ends?
So the top 3 for me are Will Dissly, Jonnu Smith, and I put Cole Kmet third. Just looking at his role change, he was more involved with, no more Gerald Everett being a factor, at least to what we saw earlier in the season. But Shane Waldron being gone, I think, is going to be a beneficial thing for Cole Kmet. So didn't have a good game. I know Dave was high on him coming into the week, and his reasoning was right. I just didn't. I wanted to see it first, and now that I saw it, I think there's going to be some opportunities for him to make some plays move forward.
All right, so Will Dissly is 22% rostered. He's facing Baltimore. In the last 3 games, Baltimore had been struggling pretty bad against tight ends. Last 3 games, they faced Adam Troutman. He had 1 catch. Then they faced the Bengals, and Gesicki had the disappointing game, 4 catches for 30 yards and 30 yards, no touchdowns on 9 targets. But Tanner Hudson had 6 for 42 and a touchdown. And last week they did well against the Steelers guys, although Darnell Washington had 42 yards. But they're a favorable matchup, obviously. You throw on Baltimore. And then Atlanta, they stink against tight ends. And then Kansas City, they're terrible against tight ends. And then Tampa Bay, they're terrible against tight ends. So Dissly has a great schedule. Okay, and then Jonnu Smith, are you worried about his matchup? The Patriots, 13th against tight ends. Only 2 tight ends have more than 45 yards against the Patriots, but they have allowed a touchdown to a tight end in 3 of their last 4 games.
Revenge game, baby.
Oh, yeah. All right, I guess that works.
No, I mean, look, at this point, based on what he's been doing, like his targets are there, his opportunities there, and the way that Tua's operating, he's the number 2 receiver.
Okay. I got to get a text from Dave, who's at the dentist right now. And he wants to come in on his live stream while he's in the dentist chair with like gauze in his mouth. And we could ask him his top 3 priorities, but we're going to let him rest. All right. Top 3 DSTs for this week.
Yeah, I only have 3. It is the Bucs, the Commanders, and the Bears. And the Bears are, I think, a little questionable, but you never know with Sam Darnold. But the Bucs and the Commanders look great. Tommy DeVito, see how that goes. They're getting healthier. Jamel Dean may return for Tampa Bay. And for the Commanders, as we have seen, they should probably be first. Just looking at how bad the Cowboys are right now.
All right, so we go Washington 1, Tampa Bay 2, Chicago 3. Washington against Dallas, Tampa Bay against the Giants, and Chicago hosting Minnesota. Top kickers.
Oh, plus it's the Dan Quinn revenge game too.
Look at that. Look at that. Kickers.
Kickers would be, we got Jason Myers against the Cardinals, Chase McLaughlin against the Giants, and Will Lutz against the Raiders.
Okay. Look at this alternate punchline from our chat for the chimney joke. How much does a chimney cost? Someone says, it's through the roof.
That's good.
That is a very good. Very good. All right. Good chimney jokes today, but you weren't expecting that on fantasy football today. So what if we're in shallower leagues and let's say Jerry Jeudy or Roma Dunze is available? Are they higher priorities than Christian Watson, Jamie? Roma Dunze and Jerry Jeudy?
I would go Jeudy 1, Watson 2, Odunze 3. But yes, maybe Odunze 4. I think Elijah Moore just get some credit also. But they're right in that mix. Yeah, for sure. Jeudy, look, it's 3 games with Jameis. It's 12.5 PPR points or more, and the number has increased each week. It went from 12.5 to 14 something to 21 something with the touchdown. So we know he's talented, and maybe Jameis is the one to unlock it. Who would have ever thought in 2024, it would take Jameis Winston to make Jerry Jeudy into a must-start fantasy receiver. But yes, Jeudy and Odunze are two of the prizes at receiver if they're available.
All right, so other players that are available in shallower leagues, okay, they're in the 70 to 80% roster percentage. Who are some of the prizes?
A receiver?
Any position.
Oh, I'm sorry. So quarterback, we're looking at, I don't love the schedule for Geno, but you got to give him some credit if you're stuck with bye weeks. And hopefully what he'll do against Arizona, but 2 of the next 3 games are against the Cardinals. Matthew Stafford, not an easy matchup this week against Philadelphia, but, he could be matchup proof as we saw last year. Remember that Baltimore game where they were fantastic, and, he has the ability to carve up defenses when those guys are healthy. And then Russell Wilson would be my favorite of this group, just based on his matchup against Cleveland.
Okay, and then I think tight end's really interesting because I know you like Will Dissly, but, I could think about my 10-team league that I share with Heath. And I said, hey, could we have Kyle Pitts? And I said on Sunday, I was like, you think we should pick up Will Dissly? And we were like, nah, we don't really have to now because Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz are on waivers. So let's say Ertz and Henry and Goddard are there. How do they compare to Will Dissly?
I like Dissly better than all of them this week. So just looking at his opportunity and matchup and performance of late, why is there any reason to go against that with how Justin Herbert's playing? Like, I did a poll yesterday on X, Twitter, of who's the MVP right now, and the 4 choices were Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff, Josh Allen, and an other, and write in comments who it should be. And I had a few Justin Herbert from week 3 on, or week 4 on, whatever it is, how he's been playing lately. You got to give this Chargers offense a lot of credit, and it's fun to watch, and Dissly's a big part of it.
Oh, I know about that poll. I took a lot of heat for my Lamar Jackson take, but it's actually pretty close. I mean, the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson in that poll were pretty close last I checked.
I'll give you the results while you're talking about it.
Yeah. You got Hunter Henry against the Dolphins, who just gave up 124 or more yards to Trey McBride and Brock Bowers, but they've been pretty good otherwise. Just those 2 studs crushed them. So tight end actually, and then there's Taysom Hill, who, could be, if you don't need anyone this week, could Taysom Hill be your top priority?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you can afford to carry 2 tight ends, which I think a lot of people have been doing anyway, why would you not pick them up and just, this is what we kept saying, when the receivers were hurt, like, okay, he's going to have one of these games, not to this extent, but, no Jamal Williams, no Kendrick Miller. They're not really a backup running back. Jordan Mims is their backup running back. So, who's going to get opportunities behind Alvin Kamara? The receiving core, MVS has been solid the last couple of games. He got 7 targets, so it's not like they were going to feature him or have been featuring him. So it finally happened, and it happened against a team that clearly is broken in the Browns. Will it happen moving forward? We'll find out, but you want that on your team.
All right, we're going to take a break here.
It was just shy of 35,000 votes. And it's Josh Allen, 41.9% as the NFL MVP right now, according to the people who voted. Lamar Jackson second at 34%, Jared Goff third at 19.7%, and other, which was, again, a lot of Derrick Henry, Justin Herbert, some funny ones, Russell Wilson, Mike Tomlin got a vote.
Let me just clarify something here. Jamie had it right the first time. It is 3,500 votes, not 35,000 votes.
3,500 votes. Sorry,
you're not that popular.
Sorry.
Yeah, that'd be amazing if we get 35,000 votes on one of our Twitter polls. All right, we're gonna take a break and talk about the deep league options when we come back. But before we do that, Jamie, hold on, let me get the joke up here. Jamie, I saw 2 giraffes playing basketball today. The game was neck and neck. Okay, we'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
All right, we're back. We've got a recap of Houston, Dallas coming up. But for now, let's talk about the players. None of these guys are available in my league. And Dave can't pick up on my Cartman-esque voice today. But Jamie will. Who are some of the deep league targets on waivers?
I just want to also clarify, like, these jokes are sent to me, so I'm not making them up. So
yes, he's a good distributor of dad jokes.
I like to share with Adam because I know he enjoys them. Let's see. Quarterback, we have a lot of not good options, but options for Superflex in 2 quarterback leagues. Bryce Young is at 11% rostered. He's going to start at least one more game, so we'll see what happens. But he has got a favorable schedule moving forward with Tampa Bay in week 13, Dallas in week 15 if he keeps the job there. So his best game so far has been 17 fantasy points. We'll see if that continues moving forward. You got Tommy DeVito at 1% and Gardner Minshew at 9%. Minshew is going to start week 12 as well. And coming off a solid game against Miami with 21.9 fantasy points. After Denver gets Tampa Bay in week 14, Atlanta week 15, Jacksonville week 16, New Orleans week 17. So if you can avoid the Denver and Kansas City matchups, that's a pretty good schedule for the Raiders.
There's Minshew?
There's Minshew.
Okay.
Running backs that are available in shallow leagues, you have.
As you look that up, but just Minshew, in case I missed you saying it, he's kind of like week to week in terms of keeping the starting job. They are so fickle. And Antonio Pierce had to say, yeah, he's starting in week 12, but they are just, I don't know. They're unstable when it comes to who's starting and who's not starting. But yeah, go ahead.
I think the prize for deeper leagues would be Amir Abdullah, 3% rostered. So we'll see if he gets the starting job for week 12. Again, difficult matchup against the Broncos, but he did catch touchdown against the Dolphins. Beyond him, you have not a lot of options. Jalen Wright's 25% rostered, but I don't know how many people don't roster him.
Stuff out there.
Yeah, running back stuff.
Yeah.
Wide receivers, we have. Let me just get the list.
It's funny. I always do my own waiver notes, and then I get Jamie's in the morning, and I compare them, and I was like, I bet I'm going to have to remind Jamie about Parker Washington. But I didn't. He had Parker Washington on there because Washington has been 8-ish PPR fantasy points with Trevor Lawrence since the Christian Kirk injuries, and now Gabe Davis is out for the year. So they're on a bye, but that's one name, Parker Washington.
So if you need one for this week, Devon Vele, are we saying it right?
Yeah, Devon Vele.
2% rostered. He scored at least 10 PPR points each of the last 2 weeks. It's a gamble to figure out who's the best second Broncos receiver, because little Jordan Humphreys had some moments, Marvin Mims had some moments, Troy Franklin's had some moments, but Vele the last 2 weeks seems to have some consistency. 9 targets, 8 catches the last 2 games, so he might be the best one. You mentioned Parker Washington and his potential injury replacement. Ray McLeod might be needed. You say it's a minor hamstring injury for Darnell Mooney, but what if it's not?
Yep.
Coming off their bye, those 2 guys I think are in a similar situation. At tight end, we have several options for you. Again, see if Will Dissly's available. Almost 75% of leagues he's available. Jatavion Sanders, we'll see what happens with Thielen coming back, but he's starting to play better in a good matchup, at least this week and moving forward. This week he gets the Chiefs. Theo Johnson's been playing better. We'll see if he becomes an option for Tommy DeVito. And then Lou Schoonmaker, look, Jake Ferguson got concussed last night's game. Schoonmaker had a strong performance, so he may be somebody to lean on even in the matchup against Washington.
Oh, listen to who the touchdown. Listen to the tight ends that have scored touchdowns against Washington in their last 3 games. Theo Johnson, 51 yards and a touchdown. Chris Manhertz also caught a touchdown. Pat Freiermuth caught a touchdown. And then Dallas Goedert had 61 yards on 5 targets. So Schoonmaker with those 10 targets, I think Cooper Rush threw like 50 times last night. But it's hard to see Ferguson coming back. It happens. But concussion on Monday, game on Sunday, I'm thinking Schoonmaker will be starting for the Cowboys. This is obviously not a big endorsement here, but if you're desperate, if you're in deep leagues, Sanders, Theo Johnson, and Schoonmaker, you're kind of blessed to have those options. And then I guess I would throw Brock Wright in there as well. He had 1 target in the end zone. He caught a touchdown. That could always happen. But if Laporte is out again. I also just want to give a little bit of love to the Titans offense, which has been better. And Nick Westbrook-Akine is available in over 80% of leagues. And Will Levis, I think, is available in over 80% of leagues. And they have a very good schedule coming up. So it's hard to trust Levis. I understand that. He's 16% rostered, but Houston's been bad against quarterbacks. Washington's okay. Jacksonville stinks. Cincinnati stinks. And then Indianapolis. That's their next. And then Jacksonville again. We talked about this with the schedules last week. Like Calvin Ridley set up for a great finish. Will Levis might might help you out too. Maybe at Westbrook-Akine is not terrible. He has the longest receiving touchdown of the year. Nick Westbrook-Akine.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's scoring touchdowns. Just hard to trust. But 2 of his last 3 games, he does have 6 targets.
We haven't mentioned Caleb Williams. He's 68% roster. He's not a deep league guy, but I just saw him in my notes. How do you feel about Caleb Williams going forward?
I mean, he hasn't scored a touchdown in 4 games.
Okay. Enough said. How about last night's game? How'd you feel about last night's game?
I wish that Nico Collins touchdown counted. It would have been nice to get CJ Stroud going a little bit more. Dallas stinks. It's just, you got lucky with CeeDee Lamb, I feels like. 12 targets. I think he'll get a lot of opportunities. You mentioned how much Cooper Rush threw the ball. But at what point do they just say, okay, we're done with him too, and not risk any injury for CeeDee Lamb? It's bad right now. You wonder if Mike McCarthy's going to survive.
Boy, does CeeDee Lamb look unhappy out there?
Wouldn't you be?
He looks so frustrated. There was that, I couldn't tell if he was mad at Rush or mad at himself for that drop on I think a 3rd down. The ball was behind him. He just looks so frustrated, and he's looked like that a lot this year. But I don't know. You think it was lucky with CeeDee Lamb? Let me see. His final line was.
I think it's lucky that you're getting this type of production from him. Not that he's doing that, because he was productive with Cooper Rush in 22, and he has the chance to be productive with anybody. But they just look awful. They look absolutely awful. The Turpin touchdown, the play design was nice. They caught them in the right defense for that. To use a speed receiver with the safeties playing the way that they were. I mean, that game could have been a shutout.
What do we do with CJ Stroud at this point? Yes, he had 75-yard touchdown call back. In fairness, I do think that the illegal man downfield very much contributed to springing Nico Collins for that touchdown. But that's a huge play that called back. But Tennessee at Jacksonville, then a bye. Is he even worth rostering at this point? He's been so bad.
He has been bad. Trying to see. Let me see where I have him ranked for this week. He is just ahead of Richardson in May.
Okay.
They have such tough matchups. Oh, I'm sorry. May doesn't have a tough matchup. Richardson has a tough matchup.
Yeah. Potential's still there for Stroud. You just hope that they can keep him protected, because he's struggled under pressure this year. And Joe Mixon is #1 running back per game. Tank Dell and Nico Collins had the same exact stats. 4 catches for 54 yards on 7 targets. It's so weird with Dell. I just feel like I'm hanging on to a moment, hanging by a moment. I'm hanging on to a memory with Tank Dell of him being
FOMO with him.
It is 100%. I keep starting him in 3 receiver leagues. And I probably still will. Would you start? I would. How many Browns receivers are you starting over Tank Dell this week?
3.
Oh, okay. Rico Dowdle. Yikes. 10 carries for 28 yards. Good run defense. 2 catches for 6 yards. How much faith do you have in Dowdle going forward?
Flex at best. This was a bad matchup. Houston's run defense is good, but their offensive line's in shambles right now, so it's hard to trust him.
It felt to me like there was a stretch in the second half where they were trying to get a spark and they went to Deuce Vaughn. Maybe they were frustrated with Dowdle. So I'm curious to see what happens with Dowdle next week. All right, here's the drop-o-meter. Ricky Pearsall, 59% rostered, no catches on 2 targets, 0 to 10 on the drop-o-meter for Pearsall.
10.
Tucker Kraft, 84% rostered.
7.
Drop him for Will Dissly.
Yep, I'm going to do that.
Audric Estime, 76% rostered.
See, I'm going to hold him just based on what Sean Payton said. It could be week to week. Plus, you have some lottery ticket upside there. The schedule is favorable moving forward. So I would not want to drop him, but 2, if you need to, make a move. This is an interesting week. So, you see the running backs that I mentioned to drop. I don't know when we'll get to that if we do. But, you don't want to drop handcuffs. That could be amazing. Now, you have a few that are on bye this week, so you can get away with it if you need the roster spots. So, Tyler Algier, Braylon Allen, Ray Davis, these are guys I'd like to have on my roster, but how can you afford to carry them if you have so many bye week issues, right? Jordan Mason, not doing much since Christian McCaffrey's returned, but the minute something happens to McCaffrey, Jordan Mason's going to be the most added player. So these type of guys, it's tough to drop. So I think Estime's in that category, but we are coming off a game 2 games ago where he was considered the best Broncos running back in a game where they nearly upset the undefeated Chiefs at that moment.
And if you can afford it, if you feel like there are options on your waiver wire that are still going to be there throughout the week, you should wait until Saturday or Sunday to drop Tyler Algier if you have to drop him, to drop any handcuff, anybody that you want back. Give yourself a chance to get that player back instead of the entire week for someone else, or a few days anyway, where he's on waivers for someone else to pick him up this week. Okay. Who else do I have in the drop-o-meter? I have DeAndre Hopkins facing Carolina this week, 98% rostered.
I would not want to drop him this week. I want to see what happens.
All right, we'll go through more drops as we go through each position, starting with quarterback. So the shallow league guys are Geno Smith and Matthew Stafford and Russell Wilson. Jamie said Russell Wilson is his favorite in that group for this week. Cleveland's been struggling. And I'm sorry, Russ over Richardson this week? Okay.
For this week.
Richardson is a guy that we may not want to start this week, but would love to have him on our roster and just see what happens going forward. Drake May, you might say the same thing. He's just, he's playing pretty well. The fantasy points aren't always there, but he scored 22 points against the Rams.
So that's now 22 in 3 of his 5 healthy games.
Yeah.
And I don't fear the Dolphins defense from a quarterback perspective.
No. 3 of the last 4 quarterbacks have been very good against the Dolphins. Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Gardner Minshew. Stafford was not. Jameis Winston, tough matchup, but he throws 46 times. Derek Carr's on a bye, but he's playing well. Maybe he'll get Olave back later this year. Bryce Young, Tommy DeVito, Gardner Minshew, deep league guys. You want to give your thoughts on Will Levis? I brought him up earlier.
Yeah, I'm going to add him to the column. I didn't realize he was rostered in enough where I think still super flex and 2 quarterback league managers can get him. But in 1 quarterback leagues, you're not trusting him. So the schedule is favorable. And give him credit. 17 plus points in each of the last 2 games. So it's not a bad guy to pivot to if you are, 10-team, 2 quarterback league. We've got all these teams on a bye.
Yeah, 17 plus fantasy points in 2 straight games at the Chargers, home against Minnesota. So those are good defenses. And 23 pass attempts against the Chargers, 31 against Minnesota, and he had a 50-plus yard touchdown call back to Calvin Ridley on an illegal formation. There's some momentum there. How do you feel about Tua Tagovailoa? He's got the Patriots this week.
Low end starter. I mean, you got to like what you saw last week. I don't think the Patriots defense is one that you fear. So maybe he's getting hot at the right time. Tyreek made a big play for him. Jonnu Smith making plays for him. It would be nice to see Jalen Waddle make some plays for him. So as long as the run game is not dominant, then I think Tua will have an opportunity for another 250-2 or 250-3.
One more quarterback I wanted to mention is Trevor Lawrence. He has scored 18.8 or more fantasy points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues in 5 of his last 6 games. I was thinking there'd be a coaching change that would spark him, but it hasn't happened. But he's got a pretty favorable schedule after the bye. So Lawrence is 48% rostered.
If he plays.
Absolutely, if he plays. There was some optimism that he would be back after the bye. Running backs, Javonte Williams, if he's available, would be the prize. He's 85% rostered. And he could have 1 touch this week, but you'd have to take a shot on adding Javonte. If Jonathan Brooks or Jalen Warren were available, who would you prioritize?
Warren. Over 10 PPR points each of his last 2 games. And I think just based on how the schedule looks for Pittsburgh, which isn't exactly easy for them either, then maybe we get a few more options from the passing game. So 4 catches last week. I know Najee did also, but I wonder how much of that was maybe Najee getting a few more opportunities with the back injury for Jalen Warren. The fact that he came through it healthy, he's also an injury away from being a starting running back for the Steelers.
Actually, I'm thinking maybe if Jalen Warren were available, he'd have to be one of the most desirable waiver wire ads across the landscape. So the guys who are widely available are Roshan Johnson, Trey Benson, Amir Abdullah. And if you need someone this week, Amir Abdullah might be your top priority, but we don't know what the status of Madison and Zamir White are. Hopefully we'll find out more before we have to set our waiver claims.
I think it's clearly more beneficial to Abdullah if White is healthy and Madison is not.
Yep. Yeah. Dylan Lobby would be another option there in the Raiders backfield.
Do you know how many carries he has this season?
Dylan Lobby?
Yep.
3.
More or less than 3?
I guess less. Who has more? Does he have any
fantasy points he has on his 1 carry?
He has 4.
He has -2. He has fumbled on his only carry in the NFL so far.
Jeez. All right. And That's still in lobby. Cam Akers, Jerome Ford. I mentioned he plays the passing downs role for Cleveland.
4 catches last week. Yep.
Yep, 4 catches last week. And Pittsburgh, they give up the 8th most receiving yards per game to running backs. A lot of that was Breece Hall at 100 yards. Jalen Wright is another option with Raheem Mostert perhaps being phased out, also getting a little beat up. You could drop Raheem Mostert, and a bunch of handcuffs are on Jamie's drop candidate list. But again, don't do it unless you have to. And then, like if Gus Edwards were available compared to Roshan Johnson, Trey Benson, Amir Abdullah, where would Gus rank?
I have Gus in the column. He's ranked there. He's Yep.
I'm sorry, I did not see him there. Where is
Did
he?
I take him out?
I don't know. I may have just done it
Well,
wrong.
sometimes when I write the story, then I send you just the names. I may have deleted it. Gus is after Abdullah.
Okay. What about Justice Hill? Any interest in Hill?
I mean, you kind of know what you're getting with him at this point. It's at best like a 7 to 8 point game without a touchdown.
Yeah. And then I would tell everyone, hey, there's Tajay Spears, but they're probably losing Tajay Spears in the concussion protocol.
Yep.
The best wide receivers, if Jerry Jeudy's available, I believe Jamie said he'd be number 1 over Christian Watson, right?
Yep.
Jeudy, then Christian Watson, Elijah Moore, Romo Dunze if he's available, Demario Douglas. Jalen McMillan had 7 to 8 targets in each of his last 2 games. That was without Mike Evans. Adam Thielen, I got to apologize. I doubt anybody actually took my advice, but when I went against Quentin Johnston a couple weeks ago for Xavier Leggett, it was just bad advice. I don't know who I'd rather have.
Next week, baby.
What'd you say?
We get lunch.
Oh, yeah, I have to buy you lunch. Crap. I don't know who I'd rather have, Thielen or Leggett. Who would you rather have?
So I wrote add Thielen, even though Leggett is in this range of 59%. And in the write-up, I said Leggett would still be my preferred option. He does have 3 touchdowns in his last 5 games. But who knows what they're going to do with these guys. Thielen was such a go-to option for Bryce Young, and Young's still starting. Last time we saw Thielen, he scored a touchdown. It was week 3. It was against Las Vegas. So it's hard to say.
Okay. MVS, Nick Westbrook-Akine, Alec Pierce just needs to catch a deep ball. He's pretty good.
Those are 3 guys with the Spider-Man meme all looking at each other.
yeah, I guess so. Devon Vele, Jamie mentioned him earlier at Las Vegas. Ray McLeod, if there's a longer-term injury to Mooney, and Parker Washington. I have a few more names here. How do you feel about Noah Brown? Revenge game, right, against Dallas? Was he on Dallas?
Noah, thank you.
He had 6 to 8 targets in 4 of his last 6 games. Noah Brown.
You take out the Hail Mary since the rib injury for Jaden Daniels. It hasn't been good for him.
Keenan Allen. Any interest in him?
How many receivers for Chicago can we trust?
0.
Yeah. No, I mean there's 2. DJ Moore and Odunze coming off of this.
Trust, I don't know if I'd use that.
Trust is tough, yeah.
Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte.
Don't want to trust those guys.
Yeah, they're 2% rostered or less. I mean, Boutte, I don't know what he is, but he's not rostered in many leagues. Curtis Samuel going into a bye. He's got 14 targets in his last 2 games.
I'm hoping that Keon Coleman is back and we get a little bit more for Amari Cooper.
And Rashad Bateman against the Chargers at the Chargers.
I think it's just too tough to trust right now.
Yes, he is. But if you need a dart throw in what's hopefully a high-scoring game, that's always Rashad Bateman, who played a lot of snaps. Like he and Flowers were on the field a ton in Week 11. So then you got the tight ends. You got Taysom Hill, Hunter Henry, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz in the shallower leagues. But Jamie likes Will Dissly more than all of them this week. I mean, obviously Taysom Hill is not playing this week. Jamie likes Will Dissly a lot. Jonnu Smith. How about Jonnu Smith versus Goddard and Henry and Ertz?
Better than Goddard, better than Ertz. I go back and forth with Henry, but I'll take Jonnu right now.
Okay. And Cole Kmet, Jatavian Sanders, Theo Johnson, and Luke Schoonmaker. We already went through this spiel. I'll throw out one more name. How do you feel about Isaiah Likely?
Tough to trust.
Are you good dropping Jake Ferguson?
Yes.
Dropping Mike Gesicki? Yes.
Yep.
Obviously dropping Dawson Knox.
Yep.
And then the DSTs, the Bucks at the Giants. We like the Commanders number 1 now. Commanders against Dallas, Bucks at the Giants. Now, the good news for both of these DSTs is that you might be able to keep them for multiple weeks. Look, the Bucks defense absolutely stinks, but their next 3 matchups are the Giants, Panthers, and Raiders. Commanders have Dallas and then Tennessee, and then a bye. The Bears are the other defense that Jamie has, and then I think it's kind of like a half-hearted Bears call. And because they get Minnesota, they haven't been that good lately. Kickers are Jason Myers, Chase McLaughlin, and Will Lutz. I'm going to we have a few minutes here, so I had a question I wanted to read. We might read this one on CBS Sports Network later, but the question was, I'll find it. Oh, once a team is eliminated from the playoffs and there's nothing at stake, should they still be able to make waiver wire moves?
Waiver wire moves? Yes.
Trades, no. Waiver wire moves, yes.
Trades, mostly no.
If you're eliminated from the playoffs, unless it's a keeper league or a dynasty league, you shouldn't be making trades.
Well, I mean, you still, again, want to maintain some competitive balance in the league. If 2 teams are sub 500 and they're making trades, I don't think it's awful.
I don't like it. I suppose if there's any incentive to keep winning, like a weekly monetary prize for the high scorer, or there's a bracket for the losers and you get a draft pick But
if there's like a minor trade, like, I'm hurting at receiver and have good running backs and somebody's, why take the fun out of it for the fantasy player who's still trying to at least have fun with saying
because it's their fault for sucking at fantasy football and they're losers. That's
got
why.
it. Okay. And then again, like, if you're competing for a playoff spot, don't you want to have everybody still trying?
Yeah, but that's why, like, the waivers, yes, but the trades, I don't know. I don't like when teams are trading with teams that are out of playoff contention.
No. If both teams are out of it.
If both teams are out of playoff contention, then yeah.
So you're the 10 seed and you're playing the 12 seed, and then both guys are just having fun with it. And
I don't care about that. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. All right, that's it for today's show. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. We'll talk to you on CBS Sports Network at 1 p.m. Eastern for Jamie and Tom.
Oh, wait. We got a comment to read. Fine Scott Fish's.
I'm out of it in a CBS charity league, and a team whose owner loves pizza offered me a trade for a very good running back. Should I take it? No, Scott Fish.
Scott would never do that.
No, let the guy who's gassed up right now at the dentist solicit a different team that's not out of it. I guess that's the IDP league. It's been a rough year for Scott. I looked at his team.
That's the
Draftathon league.
Yeah.
Scott's team in the IDP league. I think he's got too many Vikings. Got a little Jordan Addison on there.
My team is so good, it's gonna miss the playoffs.
I have a team, dude, in our Superflex league. I have the most points and the most
killed me this week,
and the most points against. And I'm in 7th, I believe. So
I think I went into the game. You had Brandon Aubrey.
Yeah. Yeah, I was freaking out.
You had Brandon Aubrey, and I had Joe Mixon, and you were up by 40, I think, something like that.
I think even more, 45.
Up big, and then I saw the 2 touchdowns from Mixon. I'm like, let me go look and just see if it's possible.
I knew. I was like, Mixon's gonna have one of those 50.6 touchdown games. I'm gonna lose. It's gonna be awful because that's the league I benched Taysom Hill. All right, thanks everybody.
I drafted Taysom Hill in that league.
Thank you for the contribution. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you guys on CBS Sports Network and tomorrow with some trade talk and game preview. See you later.